Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about our show of solidarity today as we stand with our Kashmiri brethren. Pakistan has always been consistent as far as our stance on Kashmir is concerned, as far as our the fact that it is the Kashmiris who have the right to choose, and it is their choice and not dependent on the will of any a country like India or even Pakistan has always been Pakistan's stance. As far as our show of solidarity is concerned, as Indian atrocities and the brutality in Kashmir is not is not new as far as the world is concerned. For the world to react, as the Prime Minister said, is paramount at this time in history, and not to just stand and watch as these brutalities take place every day, as women, children are killed every day. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about other, as the Prime Minister mentioned, RSS and the fascist face of India, and how it's becoming more and more dangerous for the world at this time. Let's talk about all of that today. I have with me Air Commodore Basit Raza Abbasi, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Javed Jadoon, who's a senior journalist. Thank you for joining us today. And Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, who's a senior analyst. Thank you for joining us today. Basit Saab, to start off with you, like we were discussing earlier on, as far as our solidarity, a show of solidarity with Kashmiri brethren is concerned, we have been clear from the very beginning. Pakistan has stood by our Kashmiri brethren, and we will continue to do that. But it's something. It's sad. It's the empathy that should have been there. The kind of reaction that perhaps we should have seen from the world is missing. Even though, after the abrogation of the Article 350 and 35A and 370A, that itself also is, perhaps we've seen the local publications react for the first time, but it's still, there's still a lot of room for the world to take a stance, for the world leaders, so to speak, for the countries that matter in the world scenario. What are your thoughts on this?
As you very rightly pointed out, the world had been watching, and all these atrocities, this is not something new. They have been going on since all these 72 years. They have only increased with every passing day. And it reached a crescendo by their revocation of Article 370. And more is to follow. What's happening in this curfew and this communication blockout will be revealed later. But as we understand from the international media reports, there are a lot of human rights violations going on. Reminds me of an old saying by a 17th century French politician, Cardinal Richelieu, who said that in matter of state, one who has the power often has the right, and one who is weak can only with difficulty being away from being declared wrong by the majority of the world. So this is what happened, that Pakistan had a principled stand, and we tried to project it as best as possible. And India was, their narrative was built on lies and deception. And their lies and deceptions worked. The world was not listening to us, they were listening to them. And
the kind of propaganda, the false propaganda that was being, the picture that was being presented, I believe that's your word, to the world was being bought.
That's right. And the best example was that till last year, they were talking of terrorism, and when they meant, the India was always said that we want to discuss terrorism with Pakistan. That they projected an image that Pakistan is a terrorist state and they are sponsors of terrorists, and the world bought it. Luckily, we have come out of that. With difficulty, we have come out of that opinion, world opinion.
That stigma that was attached to us, unfortunately.
Although we still have this sword of Damocles hanging, the FATF and IMF things are still going on. They are still in limbo, and the verdict is still not out. So those are the things, those are the pressures being applied to us. But luckily, their own sort of folly that they repealed, they revocated the Article 370, it has brought the focus of world on Kashmir for a change. Now it's up to us how we sort of pick it up from here And I think today's show was a good show. It shows
Right.
solidarity of the nation, which is important. But more important at this stage for us is to actually finalize our narrative, what we want to project to the world. And I think one very important thing is to project the Mr. Modi is a reincarnation of Hitler. No two ways about it.
Right.
Look at all his steps. The demolition of Babri Masjid, the Gujarat massacre, and
what's happening at Kashmir is
Exactly,
you know,
and what's
clearly,
exactly.
if not, you know, is exactly Nazi Germany being repeated.
Exactly.
History is, you know, and the world is watching.
Yes.
When they've seen the effects of Germany are still, you know, the world has had to suffer, and people have had to suffer together. It's not one nation, as far as, you know, the whole Europe is concerned, the whole world, I would say.
So this is what we have to project in the world, in
Right.
all the capitals, in all their leading newspapers and news media channels, that this is intrinsically a fascist party. The BJP mandate, that their manifesto is fascist, and Hitler, Modi is nothing but a reincarnation of Hitler.
Right.
This we have to vociferously project it, and then we have to sort of focus the world's attention on the gross violation of human rights.
We
in
saw
Kashmir.
what happened. I mean, the Prime Minister talked about the RSS and the
Yes.
fact that, you know, it is being, India is being taken over by RSS. That itself, I mean, there's no doubt about that. It's quite clear from the policies now, from the extremism that is being, you know, propagated, the kind of tactics that Modi is using at this time. Let me go on to Javed Sahab. Javed Sahab, do you think that, you know, what are your thoughts? Do you think that we will be able to make the kind of dent that we want, the kind of reaction that we need at this time from the world?
Thank you very much, Maru. I think the positive thing this time around is that the global media has really paid attention to whatever is happening
Right.
in occupied Kashmir after the abrogation of Articles 370 and 35A and the complete lockdown in the occupied Kashmir, suspension of telephone lines, cell phone, etc. In occupied Kashmir, there are about 82 newspapers, English and Urdu, are printed and published every day.
Right.
Only 3 or 4 are being allowed to print. So that means there's a complete lockdown,
And what about
complete
the lack
blockade.
of access now? You know,
So that
people-
nobody knows what is happening inside occupied Kashmir. The draconian steps and measures they have taken over there are so grave that I think something is filtering out.
and the way that they spoke, and you know, just to sort of get you to answer this also, the way that, you know, Rahul Gandhi and you know, they weren't allowed in, and the way that members of the Congress themselves, they spoke against it, they spoke about it, that itself is also being clamped down. Isn't that true?
I think I agree with you because the kind of authoritarianism Mr. Modi is demonstrating in India is unprecedented. His BJP is primarily, I've been, if you remember, Marukh, I've been talking about
Ji.
this particular issue that Modi's policies are driven and guided by RSS and Sangh Parivar.
Right.
And today we see that is in a very naked form. RSS is literally taken over the government in New Delhi, and the components of the Sangh Parivar, they have come out in open. All minorities are being threatened, even the political opponents. And some of the statements emanating from India, from opposition parties, indicate that they are fearing the kind of authoritarianism and fascism which has, the shadows are deepening in India.
Right.
And it would have implications for Pakistan and for the entire region, and I would say for the globe, for the global community as well. Now, what exactly is happening on the ground? Mr. Modi believes that he can get away whatever he has done in occupied Kashmir. For example, he has been talking about controlling the situation. His meeting with President Trump, he said that they would be able to control the situation. It is under control, and it's a bilateral issue. It's not a bilateral issue. I think there are 3 parties to the conflict: Pakistan, India, and the Kashmiri people.
Exactly.
Kashmiri people's right to self-determination has
And
been
as
trampled
Nehru,
over there.
you know, and as Nehru
Yeah,
said,
I think
you know,
about
categorically, he
yes.
said again and again in his speech also that it is their choice and that will not be compromised.
Absolutely. And now I think the way they're handling situation over there, more than 8 million people have been turned The whole valley, in fact, has been turned into a concentration camp.
Right.
Nobody's allowed to come out. Even today, Maruf, for the third consecutive week, Friday prayers were not allowed in main mosques in major cities of occupied Kashmir. I think it's a very grave situation.
As we spoke
And
about before also, the abrogation of the articles also is part of a long-term plan. I think we've had this, we've spoken about it, but just to sort of reiterate, they are planning to change the demographic of...
Absolutely. I think even recently the Supreme Court also commented on this particular issue. They said every citizen has a right to move around wherever he wants to.
Right.
I think even, Maruf, my fear is the important institutions in India like the Supreme Court and the other institutions like media as well, they have no other option but to toe, as was mentioned,
Right.
Nazism, fascism. This is what they did in Italy and in Nazi Germany. No opposition is tolerated, no dissenting voices are tolerated.
It's a
And
sort of dictatorship.
I fear that India is heading towards one party rule, and that party would be BJP. And look, the way Mr. Rahul Gandhi was turned back from Srinagar airport, he was at the head of a delegation of combined opposition parties. And the way he was arguing, I've seen the clip, you must have seen that, in a very meek way. And I think they are playing for the gallery. They believe that even some of the important leaders of Congress, they're leaving them and joining BJP at this particular juncture. So I think the dissenting voices are being muzzled now. The liberal section of the media, people like Barkha Dutt and Nidhi Razdan, etc.,
Of
they have
course.
changed their tone now.
They have.
And I think they have been put on the back foot. RSS, they are spreading their tentacles over the whole society. And I think Prime Minister Imran Khan was very right in warning the global community of the dangers of India being taken over by RSS. And you can replicate the situation, what happened in Nazi Germany and under Mussolini in Italy. And now what options Pakistan have? I think today's show of solidarity was on the right track. But I think diplomacy we need on a very, very aggressive footing. We need to have a very proactive diplomacy.
Right, let me come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Waqas with this. Dr. Waqas, as far as diplomacy is concerned, what kind, I mean, we need, according to, Javed Saab, and I think there's no doubt about it, I think we can all agree that we need a kind of, aggressive diplomacy. Of course, our foreign policy has made a dent, for the first time, it seems. In your opinion, what are some of the steps we can take as far as aggressive diplomacy is concerned, and where do you think that we need to particularly concentrate? As far as, we were talking about building the narrative earlier also. What are your thoughts?
So thank you. To begin with the narrative thing, see, we need to understand two things, that what exactly happened to the Kashmiris by the abrogation or the de-operationalization of this article is this is an assault on Kashmiri identity that we need to understand that India has been doing since long.
Right.
And this time, this was very unprecedented. Though they have hollowed, this Article 370 since long, but this time this was a direct assault on the identity of the conflict, of the Kashmiris, one. Second, we need to also understand that this also has for us, I come from Kashmir, so I must say this has tried to deface the personality of the conflict itself, which is pending in the United Nations Security Council
Right.
in the resolutions of UNSC. So now we need to understand that these are the two things that even the pro-Indian parties within the valley, they agree on this thing, that this is something unacceptable. So in the international diplomacy, we see this is unprecedented, though, this lockdown, this suppression in the valley at the moment. But in past, we have seen that. See, there is one fundamental thing that the civil society and the people of the Kashmir have developed over the period of the time is the resilience through various forums and methods.
Right.
See, you have been seeing people from Valley, those who are artists, professors, civil societies, they have created, I guess, a huge constituency of resistance through peaceful means, and that has really attracted the world.
Right.
Now, let's suppose, in the Valley, right now we see the condition, this was an attempt to communalize Kashmir as well.
Right.
So in Pakistan, are the people, those are allies of Kashmiri people, they need to build their narrative on these 2-3 lines. And one is the communal, this communal thing is very dangerous for Kashmir. That was a diverse, pluralistic society in the history. And we see that, if there is a point of making Ladakh a union territory, this doesn't give a good message. We saw protest in Kargil. We saw protesting also in other regions of Jammu as well. You see there's a Pir Panjal region, there is other regions which are Muslim dominated as well. So this division itself, and the way they have done that by suppressing the voices of people, by locking them down and telling them that we are going to decide about your future, this also gives one message that they tried to humiliate Kashmiri people, which is, I mean, a highly undemocratic and unjust thing.
But don't you, I mean, a part of the kind of aggressiveness that we've seen, you know, the aggression has definitely increased. And there's no doubt about that. Do you think a part of that is the fear that, you know, the Kashmiri people are the kind of resilience that they have now shown, and they just, you know, there's no hint of you know, any fear as far as, you know, they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
As they are, you know, they're at that point where nothing seems to matter to them except, you know, their right of self-determination, their right.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think a part of that is that?
Yeah, but see, this has developed, evolved over the period of the time that we need to
Right.
understand. Kashmiris
Right.
have done this from the last 20, 30 years. This was a
Right.
gradual process. So there was a turning point. We were expecting that this would happen. Valley people always came out in Jammu, in occupied Kashmir, particularly in the case of the Burhan Wani. In other instances, we have seen that. But unfortunately, that was not portrayed, or the message didn't go to the international media the way it should have gone, that it is the moment of civil liberties, it is the moment of freedom and justice, which is their just right. Now, what happened this time is that the BJP's concept of Kashmir is that they more care about the Kashmiri land, not the Kashmiri people actually. So it's the land what matters to them, and then they're sending them the pilgrims back to home. This is unprecedented. This never happened in any time in Kashmir. So see, this time the message was clearly given that we will not bothering about your perceptions, your opinions, your democratic right. We'll do what we want to do, and we have done it in other parts, we'll do. Now, you said about the second part of the Kashmir, the Pakistan stands to the international world and then the diplomatic effort. I must say two things. Kashmir has been in past victim of the global politics. We see the moments, I mean, the moments when the bigger country like United States, when it was formed, the fundamental value was freedom, the justice, individual liberty. I guess this is the same narrative that we need to pitch to the world, that it is not an issue that a Muslim-Hindu issue only. No, this is something which is different, larger than that. It is the issue of individual's liberty, people's fundamental right enshrined in the United Nations Charter of Freedom. And that's what Kashmiri has been doing. So to deny that, if a state taking the advantage of its economic power, right now it's doing that, Kashmiris are resilient. They couldn't suppress them. That Al Jazeera reported 500 small protests during these 5 days, which is unprecedented. This never happened, I guess, amidst such a tight security. So I must say, world must listen to Kashmiris, and it will happen. See, we have disappointment right now that we are not trying to get the desires that we want to get. But we also need to see that are we positioning our own civil society of Pakistan, academicians, Kashmiri people, are they putting the right narrative? And I guess this is the first time I've seen from the last 10, 12 years I'm following Kashmir intensely. I must say this is the time when the Kashmiri narrative, the plight of the people of Kashmiris have gone deep down to the civil society of Pakistan, the intellectuals of the Pakistan and the
Right.
world as well.
Right, I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to Basit Saab. Basit Saab, you know, it's the first time, as Dr. Waqas is saying, that it's permeated the civil society also. You know, we've seen foreign policy in the past also, and there have been, frankly, times when we were earlier having this discussion also, that there has been inconsistency in perhaps the emphasis placed on the issue of Kashmir. Not that we've always been clear that we stand with them. There is no doubt about that. But in your opinion, do you think that narrative, how do we go about building, of course, you know, trying to get the narrative across more and more so that the world sees India for what it is doing, what it has done?
I think first step, as I said in the beginning, was that we have to finalize our narrative.
Right.
What we want to highlight, what is more important. Having done that, then we get on to actually projecting our point of view.
Right.
Now let me give an example. The issue has already been discussed in Security Council, and its results were not made public. People are guessing, and from various sources the news is trickling out. But our effort has to be uh, sort of to compel the world community to come out with a clear verdict. They always equate Pakistan and India, that both the parties should discuss. Although one party is the aggressor, they are the ones who are actually doing those actions which are wrong. And we are the silent party who are just actually trying to agree to everything. You look from the independence point of view. It was very clear that the contiguous areas with Pakistan or India would go to them, where there is either Muslim majority will go to Pakistan and Hindu majority. So there was no question of plebiscite. Kashmir should have automatically become a part of Pakistan. But later on in 48, when the matter reached Security Council, we agreed to plebiscite. It was actually, we went back on our actual position, which was the right position.
Right.
And then in Simla, we again went one step back when we said that it's not no more an international issue, it's between Pakistan and India, which it was not. It was still focus of world attention. So we gradually went back. Now we have to go on the offensive. We have to again go back. For many years, our diplomacy was either not succeeding or it was not actually making efforts, enough efforts.
But the Prime
Now is
Minister
the
also
time.
said this time that, you know, as far as our issue, our relationship with India is concerned, he has, you know, the kind of relationship, the kind of, you know, overtures that he made in the beginning are now off the table.
That's right.
So as far as our stance on Kashmir is concerned, even as far as our relationship with India is concerned, Kashmir is at the very root of that.
That's right. Now the situation, you very rightly pointed out that the Prime Minister, from the day of his swearing in, he made various overtures for peace. He asked Mr. Modi to come for talks. He opened this corridor for the Kartarpur corridor. And then during the hostility time, when we shot down the Indian pilot, he released it without anybody even demanding it. I mean, those were the effort to show.
Those were the correct
Exactly.
moves to make.
Yes, that was to show, that was to go onto that high moral pedestal, that we are a peace-loving nation and we want to resolve all problems through peaceful means.
And perhaps we and rightly hoped that, you know, sense
Exactly.
would prevail and we would perhaps be reciprocated.
Exactly. But when then there came a time when he said, this man of peace had to say, enough is enough. Now we have made all the efforts. If the other party is not ready to listen,
I mean, if they're going to be seen as a sign of weakness
Exactly.
rather than strength, rather than, you know, our morality,
Exactly.
then you know, why should we
That's
go
right.
down that road?
And with that, I will come to the steps which we have to take. Now. I remember that when Quaid-e-Azam was fighting the case for Pakistan, he mentioned in a speech that give me silver bullets and I'll get you Pakistan. So those silver bullets are required for every struggle. Now these valiant Kashmiris, I salute them, that they are fighting, they have no resources. Many people compare Afghanistan with Kashmir. They said that, look, Taliban also fought and look, they have made America kneel down.
Yes, they do.
And why can't Kashmiris do it? Kashmiris are handicapped. There is no source of material support for them. They are fighting with stones and sticks.
And with their last
that
breath.
behemoth like India, with all its forces, about 7 lakhs of them, right? Actually, the streets of Srinagar, they are more filled with concertina wires and Indian soldiers than cars and people. So that is the situation over there. So as far as doable steps are concerned, diplomatic offensive, yes, there's going to be a meeting of United Nations Human Rights Committee next week, and Foreign Minister is going there. That's a good forum because their reports have already categorically mentioned violation of human rights in India. And then Prime Minister is going to address the General Assembly. Our effort should be that Pakistan will of course talk of Kashmir, but we should convince few more countries to take up the case of Kashmir. Pakistan
Let me go
alone.
to Javed Saab. I'll come. Ji Javed Saab, please continue. You know, I mean, Basit Saab is right. We need to convince more countries to, you know, to stand with us on this issue. As far as America is concerned, you know, we saw the way that, you know, the Indian Prime Minister handled the offer of mediation by Donald Trump. I mean, saying that, you know, I would say very craftily sidestepping it and saying that, you know, we would be able to perhaps do it ourselves between the two countries. Don't you think that's true?
I think right from the beginning, we misunderstood Mr. Modi.
Right.
When Prime Minister Imran Khan said that Mr. Modi when his party comes into power, I think there would be better prospects of talks between the two countries to resolve.
That was his hope, I guess.
I think I was among the few people who definitely opposed and disagreed with this idea, because knowing that he believes in Hindutva and supremacy of Hinduism, he's anti-Muslim, anti-Pakistan, he would never go for any negotiations with Pakistan to resolve the lingering dispute of Kashmir. And instead, he would go for the final solution, and that is the annexation of occupied Kashmir. This is what he has done. Now, what are the options available to Pakistan right now? I think, first of all, Maruf, one should be very clear that war is not an option to resolve any dispute anywhere in the world. We have seen the devastations and catastrophic consequences we have seen in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen, in Lebanon, and many other conflict-affected areas and countries. So the only option available to Pakistan, at
But
least.
Javed Sahab, Prime Minister mentioned, we were earlier also discussing this, the threat of a misadventure.
I'm coming to that.
Right.
The only option available to Pakistan is the diplomatic option. And how we can do it, I think Prime Minister should appoint certain focal persons to talk about the Kashmir disputes, different dimensions, and those people responsible, or the focal persons responsible, should be allowed to make statements with the approval of the Prime Minister. And I think Foreign Office, secondly, can arrange daily briefings on occupied Kashmir situation to sensitize the world community, because when you say something at the Foreign Office, it draws the attention of the media in Pakistan and globally as well, like what we have been talking about, what is happening inside occupied Kashmir, and information is not filtering out. So I think there should be certain focal persons at the Ministry of Defense, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Prime Minister's office as well. Secondly, I think we need to send envoys to important world capitals. I think it should have been done much earlier. And even if Prime Minister can embark upon certain tours of the world community to sensitize the world community, I think that would be really appropriate. And fourthly, Maruf, I think media in Pakistan, I think thankfully they have taken up the occupied Kashmir situation, and they have been talking about. I think this war is being fought on so many fronts, like on social media,
And it has to
particularly
be.
on Twitter, on many other platforms, electronic channels, print media, etc. I think these are the options available to Pakistan. Pakistan, as you pointed out, Prime Minister's statement that in case of any misadventure in Azad Kashmir, Pakistan, I think, will go after India or respond to that misadventure, everything Pakistan has, because we have got no other option but to respond with full power, full might, and everything we have in our inventory of weapon systems. I hope it doesn't come to that. But Mr. Modi, my fears and my apprehensions are that he's not a logical person. He is simply following the philosophy, the political approach of Hitler and Mussolini, and that is to crush the minorities in India first. And then, look what Mr. Rajnath has said, that now we can talk and negotiate about the Azad Jammu and Kashmir, not the occupied Kashmir. I think this is the next step they are talking about. So there were times when Kashmir was considered as a disputed territory.
And these are the kind of plans they have, because, earlier on they followed through on the Article 370.
Absolutely. And I
375.
think Prime Minister was very right in expressing the fears and apprehensions that there could be some kind of misadventure in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and the global community should be sensitized that if something happens like that, it's a nuclear flashpoint, and any limited conflict can turn into a larger conflagration, and it could have nuclear dimensions as well. So I think it is about time that, and it was very heartening that a very large number of people, the Pakistanis, came out today on the streets and voluntarily, and I think this is very heartening that people are being sensitized. They know what is happening over there, and they really feel the pain of the Kashmiri brothers and sisters over there. And the government of Pakistan, the armed forces of Pakistan, and the people of Pakistan are united in their support for their Kashmiri brothers and sisters. But I think we need to go beyond that now. Our support is unquestionable, but I think
But
the
you need the
support of the
word-
Muslim countries,
yes.
particularly the members of the OIC, and we have seen in the recent past that
But
some of
Javed
the
Sahab,
instances and
I have
examples.
to go to Dr. Waqas, but just to quickly, there is, the role of some of the Islamic countries on this issue is unfortunately disappointing. Isn't that true?
It has been disappointing, and I think Pakistan did voice its concern as well and its disappointment as well.
It seems to be
because
dictated by
we have,
economic needs.
Maruf, we have
by-
always supported every Islamic cause, whether
Right.
it is Palestine or any other Muslim cause. But when it comes to the cause of Kashmir and the cause of the people of Kashmir, I think that we have received little support from the Muslim countries.
Let me go. Ji, Dr. Saab, you agree? I mean, unfortunately, the kind of reaction we've had from some of the Islamic countries is dictated by economic needs, by perhaps their own situation at this time, their own and not at all motivated by the kind of humanitarian brutalities, violations of human rights that are being committed and are not any news to the Islamic community.
Yeah, this is sort of unfortunate that we've seen, a week ago, what has happened actually, the way their Prime Minister was received during the time, and there's an intense clash and the way people are suffering.
Muslims are.
Particularly, yeah. So,
Yes.
I mean, even in the case of, if we define it as the case of humanity, we see that, there is no justification of it. People, countries, societies, they have certain value system, and everywhere it should be followed. So, but I have one.
Like Javed Sahab mentioned, we've always rallied behind Muslims
Absolutely.
rather than.
So I guess one thing I personally saw this in Pakistan, when we see this, when we say the Islamic countries, we must also need to understand one thing, that there's always a difference between its people and the government in place. So on the one side, we see that government might not be supportive, but we see a lot of response from their civil society and people aligning and standing with Kashmiri people, with their cause. This shows that still there is a lot of hope in the people. I guess here, this is the duty of people, though, from within Pakistan, within AJK, though those who are living here or abroad, diaspora as well, to engage people, engage the civil society, engage the academicians, engage the vibrant section of the society to sensitize them about the people's plight over there. And you know what? I mean, this is one thing we need to frame, that this, what Kashmiris generally, in particular, are asking. They're asking something which is mentioned and guaranteed and agreed by the international community. Something which is not it's not something new, the freedom, the fundamental political right. So I guess there is a lot of hope. I must say one thing. We have seen, widening of the constituency of the people, those who are aligning with Kashmiris, standing with Kashmiris during these past 4 weeks. This is encouraging for the Kashmiri people. We know that they are in tremendous pressure and difficult situation. There is always chance of getting it into violent conflict from the oppressed party. But we must also see that people are getting closer to the cause of Kashmiri people. And within Pakistan, we have also seen their support. But let's see, New York Times, Washington Post, constantly writing.
The way that the
Al Jazeera.
media has picked it up is unsurpassed, because we haven't seen
Because
that
what
kind of
India has
reaction.
done is also unprecedented,
Right.
because this is something which is, I guess, it was never happened before. But one thing I must say, we have a liberated territory of the same disputed region, which is AJK. I guess this is our
Do you
responsibility.
think that we have, like Javed Saab mentioned, do you think that there is, of course, the Prime Minister mentioned, and there seems to be, a threat as far as our, Kashmir is concerned,
See,
Azad Kashmir is
Yeah, yeah.
concerned.
So we need to understand one thing, that you just read the Human Rights Commission report published on the both about the both parts of the divide, on the both sides of the line of control. What they have written about AJK is something which is governance issues. But that comparison equally tells you what is the condition on the both sides. I must say one thing, of course, when things will be, I guess, out of control of India due to international media pressure, due to their own civil society pressure, and the way the international world is giving the attention to it, of course, there's a war strategy to digress, or to change the attention from one area to the other. But I must say one thing, we have to be proactive. The AJK government its functionaries need to be more proactive in engaging international diplomatic community. If at all they can visit AJK, they can come, they can visit the LOC, the way the plight is going, the way the firing is happening, and the way the people living in AJK, it's entirely different thing. I guess this could be a great example to follow, and that could press also India that they also need to give permission to the United Nations team maybe, or international observer. Amnesty is asking since long to get the entry there, so that this could also help Kashmiri people on the other side. So I guess there need to be a multi-pronged strategy. We have a very amazing, I must say, structures and systems in AJK.
Right.
We never saw any violence over there.
Yes, it's a
So
very-
people are taking their democratic rights, they participate there. So I guess this is the time when we can utilize them as well. Last thing I must say, the attention at the moment which was given by the Pakistani civil society, Pakistani political parties, we also need to understand that within Pakistan there needs a political consensus on this issue.
But
It
there
is
is.
there. It
There
is there, but we need I guess a more cohesive strategy from all political parties to make this voice more heard. And I guess the opposition parties need to come as well. Government need to be more proactive
and
as well.
civil society particularly.
Absolutely. So
Media, of course. Like I
Exactly.
said, like Javed Saab mentioned, that it's a multi-pronged strategy needs to be in place at this time.
Exactly, and I guess this is also evolving. So the world is listening, they are paying the attention as well. But this is the time we need to stand with the Kashmiri people, because this is now or never situation. Because this is the time when India has done something which was unprecedented, and it has literally communalized.
And there is a threat of them continuing to do this.
Absolutely.
So there is, I
See-
mean, it doesn't just end here for Modi.
And giving this message that you will cut Ladakh and other regions of the Union territory, and then you are giving them a message that we don't care about the people's right, and then it doesn't matter the entire state and the United Nations Security Council resolutions. So this message should not be accepted within Pakistan, outside as well, and there is a time when cross-section of the society should stand up. They are standing up. It should continue,
Right.
and continue for the just right of the people of
Right,
Jammu and Kashmir.
Javed Saab, your thoughts before I close?
I think, Maruk, Mr. Modi has ended up literally internationalizing the Kashmir dispute. He thought that he would get away with that, nothing would happen, no media attention, no global community's concern. But what has happened has really surprised Mr. Modi as well. I think he has been trapped in his own strategy. I think despite all the gloom and doom in occupied Kashmir, the positive thing which has come out is the sensitization of the Kashmir dispute at the global level. For the first time after 54 years or 53 years, it was taken up by the Security Council at the United Nations.
Right.
And for the first time, the global media, important influential US media, the British media, and other media outlets around the world have started talking about occupied Kashmir. I think Mr. Modi never wanted that, and this is what is happening. And I think it is an opportunity for Pakistan, for Pakistan's policymakers, for
He may have
Pakistan's-
just gone too far. I mean,
Yes, absolutely. Whatever belligerent steps Mr. Modi takes, this is not going to help India. India is being seen as a country which is basically intolerant towards the minorities inside India and towards the fundamental rights of the Kashmiris.
He's
as well.
exposed
I think,
himself,
Maruf, this is a big achievement.
Right. I mean,
As
he's
far as
exposed himself in a
we
way
need to
which,
see the glass half filled. And now, as my friend was talking about, I think Pakistani people, all political parties, media, and every section of the society is united on one platform. That is to extend moral, political, diplomatic support to the Kashmiri people struggling for the right to self-determination. There is no doubt in that, no two opinions. Pakistan is united on one thing, and that is their support for the Kashmiri people right now. And Prime Minister, I think, being a celebrity, has done a remarkable job. He has spoken to so many important world leaders. He has really, really sensitized them. And I think it is a long way to go, Maruf. The struggle has just begun. It has just started. And it's a long way to go. And Pakistan and Pakistani people and all Pakistani institutions and media must be prepared for that. It's a long struggle for Kashmir.
right. Gee, Basit Saab, what are your thoughts? Finally, before I close.
Yes, I think this was a good show of solidarity, but we have to go beyond it. And he very rightly said that it's a long struggle. So we have to take the short-term steps as well as long-term steps. I think our diaspora is very important, both from Kashmir and Pakistan. And the show that we are putting up, the demonstration that we are putting up in world capitals, we must ensure that the Sikhs should stand with us, the Dalits, if possible, the Mizo guy should be there, the Nagas. I mean, all those oppressed minorities who are actually struggling to get freedom from India. We must collect them on a common platform. And along with Kashmir, we should also raise the voice for Khalistan, for other oppressed communities. And that's where we will be successful in projecting the image of India as an intolerant society and not as a secular democratic country. They are this majoritarianism.
image that they try
They
to-
have to be
they-
exposed.
yeah.
Actually, they have to be exposed, and Pakistan has to do it at all forums, the diplomatic, political, and all international fora. United Nations is a forum for that, and we have SCO organization, a regional organization. OIC is another. All the forum, all the channels available to us have to be tapped, and we have to. We are the voice of Kashmir, as Prime Minister has rightly pointed out, that I'll be the ambassador of Kashmir. In fact, we are all the ambassadors for Kashmir, and we must play that role with all our might, all our energies, and all our resources. And
Right.
inshallah,
And
we'll
Marak,
get there.
when we talk about India, we must differentiate between Modi regime and the other same elements in different sections of the Indian society. I think they have put up a very, very kind of a brave struggle against Mr. Modi. Even in the parliament, in their media, in the civil society, there are many people, many senior voices. So I think that differentiate should be there between the Modi regime and the same elements in India.
Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you for being with us, Air Commodore Basit Raza Saab. Thank you for joining us, Javed Jadoon Saab. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Waqas, thank you for your input. As far as Kashmir is concerned, certainly the struggle has just begun, and we need to be united. We need a multi-pronged approach as far as the issue on Kashmir is concerned. We need to fight it on all fronts. The Prime Minister has very rightly led the way as the ambassador of peace for Kashmir, but as Basit Saab said, we are all ambassadors of Kashmir for peace, and we will all fight the cause for Kashmir, whether it's the media, whether it's the civil society, whether it's the politicians. Let's hope that the Kashmiris can actually get the breathing space to self-determination. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.